Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of The Elouise Show, featuring Jad-Evangelo Nasser. Born in Beirut, Lebanon, Jad is a multilingual filmmaker, educator, and media specialist of Palestinian slash Haitian heritage, who comes from a global advertising background working in the Middle East and North African regions. He came to New York in 2016 to pursue his passion of empowering global inclusion and diversity narratives, as well as push immigrant and BIPOC stories in the media advertising fields. Having a musical documentary, Once Upon a Color, on Amazon, being featured on Fox 16 News as an associate professor at Post University, and also being a team leader slash mentor moderator for 100 Roses from Concrete. And for those of you who don't know, that is a community of professionals of color in media. Jad-Evangelo finds his strength as a people connector, a counselor, a professional executive, paving the way for young BIPOC dreamers as himself to find their narrative and make their mark in the world. Jad, welcome to the Eloise Show. How are you feeling today?
Hey, Lynette, thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. I'm feeling great. That was an amazing intro. I appreciate it.
I am so excited to have you on. This has been a very long time coming.
Yes.
I feel like I started season one and we danced around the idea of you being on the show.
hmm
And then here we are.
Absolutely. Third collaboration
The
between
third
us.
one, right? The
The
first,
third one.
would you like to tell everyone the other two collaborations that we collaborated on?
Yeah, I mean, I will tell my part and you'll tell your part. Lynette and I became really close when we first collaborated on my film, Once Upon a Color, which narrates the stories of 8 artists of color in New York City from different backgrounds. It was a nice little musical documentary with nice beats and some nice narratives and nice spoken words. And Lynette's part was wonderful because, like, and I want you to tell them a little bit about it. I think your part was very unique because, like, you were performing a slam poetry, like when I recorded you, your audio, and we played on a little bit of like a hip hop pop beat. But
Yeah.
I want you to tell me a little bit more of like why you chose that
So
excerpt.
so it's funny because I came to you with an original poem, right?
hmm
But I also came to you with one of my favorite pieces. Because fun fact about me is that I started acting probably at the age of 11. So
hmm
I have some monologues that I just love, right? And
hmm
so based on like what you required for your piece, Once Upon a Color, that's now on Amazon.
hmm
Shameless plug. I went into like it just reminded me of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. And anyone who knows me knows that that is my favorite piece of literature ever created. And so yeah, I did the opening piece from there called Dark Phrases of Womanhood. And if you want to see the performance, you can definitely check out Once Upon a Color on Amazon Prime. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it kind of just for me spoke to um a perspective of what it is like to be a woman of color
hmm
in America.
Absolutely. And I
But
think
let's talk about your cultural background. Let's not talk about the experience of being a Black woman in America. Talk to me more about your cultural background.
well, you know me, I always throw it. I always do counter interviews whenever I like jump in. I'm like, well, actually, let me tell me about you, and you know how much I do this. But yeah, again, like collaborating with you has always been wonderful because like our narratives together just combine and intertwine so well, and I always feel very empowered when I collaborate with you. So that's something that I'm very grateful just to say it in the beginning of this wonderful
Oh,
episode.
and I definitely feel the same. And for me specifically, like one thing that inspires me most about you, and this is why this was like my first question, is like your background. You know, you're
hmm
not from the US, but the way that you've been able to kind of pave a way here in
hmm
such a short amount of time,
hmm
I'm just curious to know more about where you come from.
Absolutely, yes. So, I grew up in Lebanon, in a small town in Mount Lebanon called Zumar. My mom is Lebanese, and my dad, well, at that time, Palestinian, but he was, he grew up all his life in Lebanon. That's what I knew. I did not know that part of my father when I grew up at all. So I thought, like, my Lebanon parents are Lebanese. I grew up in Lebanon, and when you grew up in Lebanon, everyone's Lebanese. Like, we don't think about the idea of like mixed or ethnicities or backgrounds or heritage or like influence of diaspora or anything. Like, it's something that we don't really talk about. We don't even know that there are like Lebanese abroad. We grew up in a bubble, if you believe it, and we just have like these, um, mixed messages around us coming from the Western world that we just learn and adapt, and that's it. But like what's going on outside in the world, we don't really know. So that was basically my narrative growing up, like until I was maybe like 14, where I realized that my dad was Palestinian, and he told us about like his story and like told us a little bit about the history of Palestine, and that for me was like really, like I mean,
Profound.
profound. And like I just know very briefly about Palestine, and then like in school, like we people like joke about politics and like about other ethnicities, so loosely, like because of the history of our country, the feud we've had with Syria because of the war and everything. Like we make, not me, but like a lot of my peers like used to make fun a lot of may make fun of Syrians a lot and look down on them, and were very condescending towards them, and they would just joke about them. They would do the same towards Palestinians. So like I remember one time in a class, like after I knew that like my dad had this background, like in class, bunch of kids, like they started like fooling around and whatever, and they started like taking the papers and like pretending they're rocks and throwing them at each other, and like they were like mimicking of like how Palestinians were like throwing rocks towards the Israeli soldiers, because of the wars and the conflicts that have been happening. And I'm like sitting there like, I'm not sure I can tell anyone that I'm part Palestinian. Let me just sit here. And oh my God, like seeing this was just like, is it funny? I'm not sure. Should I be offended? I wasn't sure.
How
So
old were you when this happened?
that I was probably like 14, 15, maybe 15 or 16 years old,
Mhm.
and at school at the time when I was trying to like to get along, have friends and everything and all of that, blending in, all of that. I was teased on a few times, but I never thought I was ever like bullied or anything like how bullying here is in America, which is a little bit harsh. So I wanted to find a way to like blend in, but I was always so consumed with Western culture, specifically, Black TV, like, which is crazy because like we've had BET, we've had MTV, we've had VH1 and music videos and shows. Like I remember I was a little kid when I watched, Love and Basketball and like being consumed into it, or like, watching a lot of like hip hop R&B videos and like being exposed to artists such as like Nas or um I don't want to say Eminem, but like I used to listen to 50 Cent when I was a kid, but 50 Cent is not really like
I just want
legendary.
you to know that Love and Basketball is top 5 romance films of all time.
That's what I got to know when I came here. I just thought like, oh, these are just,
In my
two people. They're
book.
just two people, he's a
So
little annoying to her. He
this
treats her
is
like shit.
so this is interesting. So you grew up in Lebanon.
Yes.
You found out that you were Palestinian,
Mm-hmm.
and in there, you kind of felt like an outsider within your own
Yes.
culture.
An outsider because yes.
You had an affinity for Western culture, like you had this
Mm-hmm.
love of like, American culture.
Yes.
At what point did you find out that you were part Haitian and Puerto Rican?
When well, the Puerto Rican part is funny. When I discovered that I was Haitian is when I came to New York, and like I just like started meeting like a lot of Haitians. They just like gravitate towards me. Realized like I had like a lot of common behavior that I realized, and specifically Haitians who came to the US, like not specifically American Haitians who were born here, like the way they laugh, the way we talk and everything. And like I realized like we intersect on so many levels. I'm like, I don't know why I feel like such a, like I feel like they understand my behavior and they don't see it as weird. They see it as like very brotherly and everything. And I've learned a lot about the history of like a lot of Middle Easterns migrating to Haiti, Lebanese and Palestinians specifically, and a huge community that has been built there after 1804, like after the revolution. I was just so like amazed at like the intersection of like Lebanese Palestinians and within the Haitian communities and everything, and that was so like mind blowing to me, and I just felt like this deep connection. So I did. I know it's corny, but I did my ancestry DNA test, and I got like 7% Congolese and like 30% Carib, West Indian. And I showed the findings to my dad, and I told him like, "Yo," and I thought that I was gonna get like Latin American because everyone thought I was Puerto Rican. So at some point, I just tell people like, "Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican because like
The
I look
Puerto
like it."
Rican copy, right?
Puerto Rican copy. I'm like, you know what? We'll do it for fun. And people believed it, and it was believable because like I just naturally come off as Puerto Rican to
Wait, so
everyone.
but you're not at all Puerto Rican.
No, no, not
But, but
ethnically.
when you took the ancestry test, it showed that you were in fact
No,
Haitian.
actually, no. I did Haitian, but not Latin American. I got some Spanish, some
I
Spanish
mean,
and
in
French.
fact, we all look the same, to be
All
honest,
look the same. Exactly,
because we
exactly.
all come from the same place. And I
Have-
swear I get on this topic in every
And
episode.
that's why I'm very passionate about, like the idea of like the diaspora and like people understanding your background and like, where your roots come from. But when I showed it to my dad, like he just casually said like, "Oh, like I believe your grandfather migrated from, one of the islands. I think it's Haiti." And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense, but you did not know that. You never thought of saying that. He's like, I never thought it was a big deal or anything. I was like, I guess so. I mean, it may be true, maybe not,
I
but I
mean,
guess it
it must
is.
be nice to grow up in a culture that's not so obsessed with race.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're like in Lebanon, it's not really like that. Like, it's so different from coming to the States and understanding the idea of being a person of color. And I did not know that I was a person of color until I came and understanding, well,
You
I have
came
to put
here.
a label to me and put like a tag, like where do I blend into or more racist, Pacific Asian, all that. I'm like, I'm not, I don't know what these are. I have no idea what these things are. But I
Okay,
can tell you from now that I have a huge pride of being Caribbean and Arab, even though I've never been to the Caribbean islands or never been to Haiti, but I know that out of association.
never
So
been to Puerto Rico?
I've been to Puerto Rico, yes, but I'm
But
saying
you
like
never been to Haiti?
never been to Haiti or any West
Wait,
Indian
real
island.
quick, shout out Stephen Baboon, who was
Yes.
our in
Temen.
our baby, hashtag virtual vibes. He's in Haitian.
Yes. Hmm.
Shout out Sage Love, who was a featured
Also Haitian.
filmmaker, also
Yes.
Haitian.
Mes
Um,
frères.
was in hashtag virtual vibes, which you can also still watch on YouTube.
Hmm.
And shout out Chalky the King, who was on episode 1 of season 2, also
Also
Haitian.
Haitian. So you
Um,
have a whole Haitian group coming in on the show
and shout out Stephen St. Jean, who was on season 1, who's in the
as
Haitian
well.
film, oh yeah, as well, who's in the Haitian film Nous C'est Faux, which is the first Haitian
Hmm.
superhero film by
Hmm.
Stage Love Productions,
Yes.
also Haitian.
Oh my God, I watched the trailer and it was amazing. Like
Wasn't it?
it
Oh my
was
goodness.
freaking beautiful. And I love what Sage Love is doing. Like I love what he's doing. He's amazing, and I find like a lot of he's bringing the narrative. He's bringing the real raw Haitian narrative, and I love that. Love
Yeah.
what he's doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the cool thing is like, I mean, being a media, enthusiast, you know what I'm saying? And the media being like, your profession in your field, like
Hmm.
I just
Absolutely.
like it's just really interesting because we've dissected in our collegiate, like from in our collegiate career, we've dissected various companies, whether like both conglomerates and
Hmm.
small like individual production companies. I think it's really interesting to watch a production company such as Sage Love Productions
Hmm.
so closely and watch how they're like literally going through the steps of like this growth,
Hmm.
because they definitely, I always tell Sage that he reminds me of like Spike Lee early in his career. So I know we're gonna see great things
Hmm.
come from him, and
Yep, I agree.
he's just a filmmaker to watch.
He definitely is. Definitely is. And like he has a very visionary eye, and I
Mhm.
love that. After seeing IT The Awakening, like it was just like this is the kind of like narratives we need because like how do you bring those to a commercial
Yeah.
world like the States and actually empower them and make them spread around and people actually be wanting to see actual narratives that are not sugar coated or commercialized or
Yeah,
Americanized,
and the crazy thing too is like he's on Wyclef John's
Yeah.
radar. He's
Mm-hmm.
also, oh, I said it wrong, Jean.
Wyclef Jean. Jean. You said Jean.
He's on his radar, and he's also on Ava DuVernay's radar. And anyone
Mm-hmm.
who knows me knows,
Mm-hmm.
love her.
Like putting it
Um,
out there.
so okay, cool. Bringing it back to like your story and your cultural background. So you have this affinity for like you had this affinity at a young age for like American culture. You ended up coming out here,
Mm-hmm.
going to school here. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
working here.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me because citizenship and having a visa here and staying here for prolonged periods of times, these are really intense conversations, especially over like the past, I want to say 8 years in this country. Like when we had Trump in office, like I just feels like people were really against um foreigners coming into this coming into
Mm-hmm.
our country and staying here,
Mm-hmm.
which is a weird concept to me just because of like the history of this country. I
Mm-hmm.
understand the need to like control and protect our borders. However, like to an extent it's super hypocritical to basically say that no one can come here and stay when like
Right.
literally that's what our founding fathers did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um so how was your process of like obtaining a visa as a student, and then extending your stay here, beyond, your academic career?
Definitely. I think this is something that's very good to talk about, because sometimes people think like this is such a like a taboo topic, and like it's really not a taboo topic. It's just informational. It's a testimony of like what I do, like people have this sometimes, especially a lot of foreigners coming in, like, oh, how do I get in? How do I stay and everything? I'm like, this is how it is. These are the regulations. Unfortunately, we have to follow them. Yes, sometimes they're unfair. Yes, sometimes they're like they don't make sense and everything, but it is what it is, and we have to follow them. And like, it just we have to follow the guidelines, even though if these guidelines don't make any sense and are not, are just like not reliable, or like just not they don't, like you don't deserve to be here. Why don't I deserve to be here if I have all this talent just because of like my status? It doesn't make any sense. But you know what? It is what it is, and I had to follow it. I filed for an artist visa after graduating from my master's. We're allowed 1 year to work in the US, and after that, we either go home or it is what it is. But because I had such a powerful baggage, such a powerful portfolio of content, of creative productions, of experience, of connections from back at home, because I've done so much at home. I come from a like 7 year advertising experience. I've worked with ad agencies on brands like McDonald's, Jack Daniels, Chili's, Pepsi, Cola. So I've done commercials for these brands in North Africa and the Middle East. So this did not go to waste. I
Yeah.
did not come here necessarily to start over. I came here to bring everything that I have. So I figured like this artist visa, allows people with extraordinary ability, foreigners with extraordinary ability to work, and they have just to prove through a portfolio. So I figured, talk to a lawyer, presented my case. I'm like, this is what I have, and I've had potential freelance jobs and full-time jobs who wanted to work with me. So I spoke to them, tell them about my situation, wrote a letter. They signed it like, yes, we want to work with him for his skill set, and we presented my portfolio to, the government, to USCIS, and they looked at it and they're like, great, you know what? Perfect. This is someone who like deserves, to work here because they have a great profile. And it was definitely a long process. It was definitely a long process because a lot of research, a lot of like, following these guidelines, I made sure to, reach out to the right people, everything, all of that. And it was very, what I loved about it, it was like all my effort with the help of the people who supported me.
Yeah.
I did not have to like rely on anybody or rely on a company or rely on an entity to get to where I am. It felt like I put all my effort and hard work into this and I deserve this. So it was like a recognition to me for sure. And like eventually later on, I definitely want to, I want to build a legacy here. So green card, citizenship, all of these things, definitely they're in the process at some
Yeah.
point.
What do you what would you say to someone who basically states that visa approvals and like green card approvals, like that it's contingent, like that colorism plays a part in who gets approved and who doesn't. How true do you think that that is, as it relates
Hmm.
to like your experience with the process?
Um,
Or how
so
possible, rather, do you
it's
think that is?
possible. So I'm not quite familiar like who is behind the scenes of like signing these forms
Approval.
of approving or not, you know. They don't necessarily see your face,
Yeah.
you know, they don't necessarily like look into that because it comes from. So think about it this way: when it comes to USCIS, foreigners coming in, there's a lot of African immigrants in the United States. There's a lot of Latin American, Afro-Latin, you know, immigrants in the United States who have done the same process I have done, and as well as Europeans and everything else. It's the colorism doesn't play a role here because this is not really an American citizen process. It's not like you're applying for a job, you know, and they look at you and they do an interview with you and they have an American mentality. This is like foreigners coming in. So it's more about like the status of the country and like the relationship of that country with the United States, or like, you know, their perception of that country or people coming from that country, you know. So maybe I say maybe, you know, one situation might be like, you know what, if one person who's filing my case like does not like Arabs, maybe chances are maybe they may not approve because of their biases. Maybe it can happen, you know, while they can approve Africans coming from Nigeria because they have no issues with them or anything because they
But
have no
there has
biases
to
to.
be checks and balances in play, right?
Hmm?
Like it's not, I don't, do you know if it's just one person approving it? It
Oh
probably
no
has
no
to
no.
go through like
There's a
levels.
lot. Again, I don't know exactly what goes on the back end, but it's just assuming. But definitely, there's a lot of people looking into it. There's definitely a lot of
But
people looking
your
into it.
personal experience from the front end of things has been, I don't want to say pleasant, but you know, okay.
It was okay. Yes, I haven't had any like I mean I got approved. I mean it took a while. I got approved. You know, so yes, I don't think the bias thing plays a lot of role into that more than it's like there's a lot of politics that we don't know about. That's all I'm gonna say. But politics do play a role, you know, in like
In
these
everything.
cases. And everything, of course. So that's pretty much.
All right. Off this topic,
Mhm.
off this, let's bring it back. Okay.
Yes.
How do you feel like, let's bring it back to your work. So we talked about Once Upon a Color. We did
Mhm.
not mention that you composed the music, like you did the music composition for the entire piece. We
Mhm.
didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
So that's that. But then also virtual vibes, you know, you used your knowledge of the media realm to
Mhm.
help produce
Mhm.
you know, virtual vibes. You played a major part in curating the artists, because really that a lot of that was like your eyes. So shout out to you.
Thank
Um
you.
you have a knack, you really do have a knack for like reaching, like building connections with people, very talented people. So that's
Mhm.
like, that's really dope. How do you feel like your cultural backgrounds inform your work as a media artist?
Yeah, I like being in front of the camera for sure. Not necessarily performing, but I like being the speaker because I feel like my voice and like my presence, I can it's the easiest way for me and the most natural way for me of like narrating my narrative of my cultures, but also the fact that like I have, you know, three cultures that come together and growing up in Lebanon and it has more to do with my personality. Being a people connector is a hat that I love playing. So I think, you know, the two hats that I love the most within my work is, you know, being upfront, upstage, you know, inspiring, you know, minds. And I feel like my cultures come through when I just like, you know, talk about it like I'm doing with you right now. But also the people connection role, the people connection aspect of it is way, way more important. And I feel like this has been my, I would say, artistic persona of being a people connector and like bringing people together and emphasizing on each and everyone's story and connecting them together. And I think you can see that through Once Upon a Color because, you know, Once Upon a Color talks about eight people and all these eight people did not know each other, and hence now you have a great connection with Mobasinola
Yeah.
and Penny, and
Yes.
you've met Bobasina and Penny indirectly through the film, knowing like, oh, come on, these are other cast members, but I'll let me reach out to them. And
Yeah, like
then
we were in the film together first, and
first,
then
and then we were in Virtual Vibes together
classroom.
second, and now you
Yeah.
had Penny on one of your episodes. And for
And
me, this
Babakinola.
and Mobasinola as well.
Yeah.
That's true. And for me, that's like that makes me so happy because like that's a result. And I hate to sound, I'm not sounding arrogant with this, but I do feel proud of it because this is the result of my work. The
Yeah.
result of my work is like these wonderful human beings, artists, have connected with each other and took on that relationship and built on their narratives. And I played a role, a big role of like being the connector there. So for me, that is the result of my work. This is my work. This is what I do. This is what I love doing, and this is what I'll always be doing. And this is what I will never stop doing because that is exactly my passion. You know, just like seeing human beings and like artists, specifically artists of color and coming from underrepresented communities, coming together and knowing that like Jad brought us together and like they just go with it. And I'm like, and I would say like, what would have happened if I wasn't there? That's what I would say. Like, would you have like connected in a way or another? Maybe yes, maybe no, but I played a role in there, and that's what I
Yeah,
love
I
doing.
mean, it definitely because so I know I remember I had a class with my Bosinola, and I had a class with Penny, and like first of all, both of those women are just powerhouses, right? And they're
Powerhouses.
so like I am a person who like I fan in awe of talent. I fan in awe of intellect. I fan in
Mm-hmm,
awe of beauty.
mm-hmm,
I fan in awe of power. And these women have all four of those things going for them.
mm-hmm,
So like immediately, like hearing them speak in a classroom setting, I remember like thinking to myself, yo, I have to talk to these women, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just was so much easier to speak to both of them because that's the icebreaker. Hey, you're in Once Upon a Color, right? Me too. Like
Exactly.
easy icebreaker. Oh, we
Easy
love
icebreaker.
Jad.
Boom, bang, bada bang, done.
And I've also had the pleasure of I think working with both of them on like different
Mm-hmm,
projects. So
mm-hmm.
um both in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
Yep.
So like that's really cool. So
Mhm.
yes, absolutely. That's a direct result of your work.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
like, so you've worn the producer hat, you've worn
Mm,
the composer hat, you've worn the
mm,
casting director
mm,
hat, you've worn the director hat, you've worn the writer hat.
mhm.
Which hat is your favorite to wear in this media realm? You've worn the advertising executive hat, you've worn the professor hat. Like, which is your favorite hat?
Ah, out of all of those, I definitely say it's the people management
Mhm.
hat, which falls under like the what I'm doing right now. I'm an account manager, so I manage clients and creative teams, but that translates into also being a teacher of managing students. So I feel if we want to talk in a professional sense, more than a holistic and soulful sense that we just talked about, I would say being the manager, aka director. And
Okay.
director doesn't necessarily translates into
So,
being a film director, but being a director, program director, account director, client servicing director. A teacher is a director. So definitely being the director and managing, different artists or different students or clients or just managing people to work on a project is definitely my most favorite hat because I definitely see myself as a team leader and I feel so competent with that role. So definitely way more than the music. Like I've dabbled with it, the writing,
oh, really?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the
You're
music is
so
just
good at
thank you, but
it.
it just is just like I
You
knew
love what you love.
people are my thing. People are my thing. It is what it is. It's something that I don't need to try hard for it.
So
It's something that I don't need to focus on.
it makes perfect sense then, if being a director in corporate is like your passion because you love like managing people, working with people, helping to develop
Mm,
people, that being a teacher would be something that you started to do. How
mhm,
did you begin your like your career in academia?
mhm,
Number
mhm.
one, and number two, like how would you describe your teaching style?
Oh my God. Direct and honest for sure. Straight up punch in the face. I think that would be the best way to describe it. And you know me very well. I started teaching back in July with Post University.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful university. And I teach classes in media and communications with a focus on diversity and inclusion.
Mhm.
And with the chairperson, Margaret DeMoro. Shout out to Margaret. I love you so much. Thank you for the opportunity because her and I, and along with a lot of associates, we're empowering, seminars, talks, conversations around misrepresentation in media, stereotypes, how do we involve learning about diversity and different cultures in visual media, and how do we inform our students to, know better or like learn more or learn better about like understanding different cultures and seeing different cultures through a media lens. So this is definitely something that like the narrative that you and I talk about, I translate into my teaching. When I was back in Lebanon, I've done ad hoc seminars in copywriting at the university where I studied, did my BA. I also did a talk on digital storytelling at Lebanese German University. At the new school, I was a teaching assistant and also student advisor, so working with other students, helping out teachers and everything. And with New York University, I also was a guest lecturer for two classes talking about, content narratives by people of color. And that's when I started to realize like I actually have a natural, counseling persona that adds to my people management skills or like to my directing skills. Again, it falls under, connecting people, learning about different stories and everything. And it made me realize that like the fact that I can say something and it can spark an idea with a person or like spark a change or like, or it can turn a light bulb and like it can turn a light bulb on, I guess, to students just really amazed me. I'm like, I can say something and it can change a person's life or like course or like, I've heard students telling me like, I've never thought about it that way. I've never thought about it that way. That is so new to me. You're the first person who tells me this. I've never had anyone say that to me. I've never had a teacher say that to me. And it made me realize like, what kind of world do we live in? Like, people don't say these things to their students. Like, it just amazed me that like, especially in American academia, I'm like, how are other people teaching? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm saying these things to my students and they're like baffled of like, oh my God, like it's a revelation to me that you're telling me this. Thank you. I've never had a teacher tell me this before. And for me, it made me realize like, wow, like there's some work that needs to be done and I need to take this further. So
I
with
feel like in American academia, we have this unfortunate trend uh,
mm,
where number one, we're not taught to critically think. Number two, you have a lot of teachers and professors who aren't necessarily passionate about teaching.
mm,
They might be passionate about the subject matter, or they just might need a check.
mm-hmm,
Um, and so like I feel like as the student, you pick up on that. And then also like just not everybody gives a shit.
so
Unfortunately,
true.
but so when you have a teacher that's passionate about the content, passionate about your development, and straightforward, it's kind of uncanny and it's dope, and it can be
Yeah.
appreciated.
Absolutely. I
That's like
totally agree with you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you called out on a very important point. Like, it's unfortunate that like, a lot of scholars are like that. And these scholars are like in big, big universities. I'm not gonna name any, but like big elitist universities that unfortunately a lot of, BIPOC students and scholars want to go into these big universities thinking that this is because the name is great, but the name can be great, but the teachers may not be great. They may not. They may want Oscars and Emmys and everything, and they may not even teach you squat. But you just want to be with them because they have a brand name. They may not have a heart-to-heart conversation with
I
you.
mean,
They may not influence you the way that like a teacher from a community college can tell you and inspire you and drive you to greatness.
I feel like you don't necessarily go to Harvard because the teacher is going to really be on you. Like I feel
Mhm.
like if you go to Harvard, you know that your teacher is not going to be on you. I feel like you go to a place like Harvard for the brand name
The
and
brand name.
for the opportunity to network with a professor with like that particular background, you know?
Hmm.
And it's not to take away from, you know, community colleges or,
Exactly.
you know, schools like my alma mater, the new school, right?
Hmm.
Because it's every university has professors with amazing backgrounds. Like you have to have a good resume to even get that job, right?
Of course.
Um, so I think the thing about it, just like a student would do at like at Harvard or Yale, right?
Hmm.
You research the class, you research the professors,
Hmm.
so that you can choose which class you want to get into. For anyone
Hmm.
who's watching, who's looking into undergrad or, you know, a master's program or a PhD program, but especially though for master's programs and PhD programs, like I think it's really important to like, no matter what the school is, to do research on the faculty and see if there's someone at that school who has
Hmm.
a background that speaks to what you're trying to do. Because it'd be
Exactly.
unfortunate to end up at a school where no one can speak to like what you're trying to create, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it might not be the exact path, but you just need
That's
pieces
true.
of the puzzle and you can put it together yourself.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. Like the new school gave us that platform, and
I
I
mean,
definitely give props to the new
shout out to
school.
Nada.
Shout out to Nada. Shout out to Nada, who is our mother, our
But
mama who takes care of us.
has to be one of the best teachers. Like I have top 5 teachers of my life, and it scales back to
Hmm.
elementary school, right? Like
Right.
one of I have a well, not elementary, from middle school. I have one teacher from middle school that is hands down top 5. I hated her while I was in middle school, but as I got older, I realized that she was probably the best teacher I ever had.
Hmm.
Um, but Nada's up there, and it's because she goes above and beyond for her
And
students.
beyond.
Yeah,
And I think part of my teaching style comes from her, to
yeah.
be very honest with you. Like this heart to heart paternal approach. Because honestly, like and you and I talked about this before, like, okay, you know me, I say a lot of times, like, I can't stand children. Like, I can't stand children. They get on my nerves. Like, I can't, like, it's a
I love the
responsibility.
kids.
Like, responsibility. Why would you want to bring a kid into this world? Like, oh my God, too much responsibility, all of that stuff. Take them away from me. I don't want them.
Responsible to have any
But
kids
kids
in
love me.
2021.
I know, but kids love me. Kids gravitate towards me. Like, they come to me and everything. And I just find myself in this very paternal mode whenever I see a child in front of me, and it's like I just that's it. Like I become a dad. I become a dad. I've never been a dad in my life, and I realize like I do have a paternal and maternal approach to, you know, people that I mentor. So that's how I view my students, even though they range from 20 to 50 years old. You know, a lot of my students are like going a second chance, going to college and everything, and speaking with them on the phone to realize like, you know, I'm in my late 20s and I'm speaking to a woman who's in her 50s and going back to school and learning from her and everything. And I realize I'm like, this is more than just student teacher. I'm talking to another human being right now who's getting their education again, everything. So I just rechange like my approach has always been like, tell me about like I'm interested to know like what made you go back to school? Why are you interested in this topic? Where do you live? What do you do? What are your hobbies? Tell me about you. I don't about the class right now. Let's not talk about the class. We can have talk about the class tomorrow. What's going on with you? And then I try to see how to link their experiences into the classroom because I teach communication and I'm like, okay,
I
I
think
want
that
to.
that's a really dope teaching style too, because um people learn differently. So the more you know about
Mhm.
your students, the more you can cater, you know,
And adapt to them
and
and adapt
adapt
to
to them.
them.
Like especially if
Adapt
they're
to them.
coming to you for like one-on-one advice, like you could never give me instruction probably the same way like you receive instruction. Like
Exactly.
we learned on virtual vibes that our brains are organized completely
Be
differently.
different.
Like we have
And we approach each other depending on what we both need.
yeah,
And we learned.
and you learn how to like adapt once you learn
Mhm.
a person's working style and a person's like um learning style. But like I
Absolutely.
think it's really important, and that's a main thing that I feel like a lot of schools in the United States,
Hmm.
from elementary on up do
Mm-hmm.
not do. They do not try to understand the child or the teenagers or the adults learning style. They
Mm-hmm.
want you to adapt to their teaching style, and I
Exactly.
think that that's unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate because not just, in our field in media, especially in the corporate world, and that's something that I've realized, working in a corporate environment as well, is like they don't want to listen to you. You need to follow the rules and the guidelines the way we do them. And you tell them, I'm like, okay, but I'm not, like, I cannot resonate with these. I'm trying, but I can't resonate with it. They're like, well, you're doing something wrong. I'm like, they make you feel, they belittle you or condescend you or make you feel like you're not doing the right thing. Well, you know what? Maybe you should adapt to your employees, adapt to your coworkers, and realize, because how is it fair? That's what I always say. And if we want to talk about, in a systematic racism sense, why is it fair for people of color to adapt to white corporate American executives, talk like them, act their ways, walk their ways, behave their ways, navigate the same way they navigate, but it's not okay for white American executives to listen, even listen to
And and
uh,
this goes
employees of color.
and this experience isn't just in it's crazy because this experience isn't just in corporations. Like my first encounter with experiences like that was in my undergrad career, right?
Mm,
Where like I didn't know the word microaggressions, but I was experiencing a lot of
microaggressions.
microaggressions, not just from my peers, but from the faculty and
Mm,
the language that they use when, because I started off as a theater major. So when you're a theater major, criticism is a major part of the work. I mean, anything art related,
has
you're under
criticism.
constant criticism, right?
Mhm,
And so the language that they would use when critiquing my work was so troublesome, like very, very troublesome, especially for a woman, especially for a woman of color,
mhm,
especially for a woman of color in a place where she's the only person of color in the classroom, right?
mhm,
Certain
mhm,
language would be acceptable to the general classroom because they're not
mhm.
receiving the information the same way. Um,
Absolutely.
so it creates and then you as the student or you as the employee in this established structure um try to repress your reaction
Hmm.
and weed out the problematic words to
Right.
understand what the
Right.
they're trying to tell you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, there's some serious issues with like corporate
Hmm.
structures and
Hmm.
and just institutions, American institutions in general need help.
Hmm. They do, definitely do. And thank God right now because the movement is growing, of empowering, talent of color, especially in high positions in advertising. Like right now with my organization, 100 Roses of Concrete, which is led by Kenny Thacker. Shout out to Kenny Thacker, founder and curator of the organization. I am a team lead there and a mentor connector. Is my role over there. So we just did the growth initiative internship, not internship, growth initiative workshop program last summer, where we encourage, had 60 young students and empower them to get into the field. And we
How
got mentors and
how old are these
professionals.
students?
They're range from the ages of like 20 to 25, so fresh grads. It's fresh grads from undergrad, and we empower them to get into the field. And all of our mentors who mentor them are white, Asian, Black, Middle Eastern, everywhere, and they're all in the movement. And we all talk about the same topics of like empowering diversity and equality in in the industry, but also in high positions. So
Okay.
right now, the corporate world is shifting because there's more black and brown vice presidents and presidents and CEOs in big companies, and the narrative is changing. And the standard American, standard white American way of like communicating in an email is also changing because you need to rework these things. What is professional anymore? Like, professional, honestly, right now is subjective,
Dude,
to be
and
very
then
honest.
especially within the media industry, like
Mhm.
I feel like within the media industry, like if you're gonna wear a suit, it has to be a stylish suit. Do not pull up to an interview in the media in just a regular black suit. Like I feel like interviews, depending on your area, like your area, I just feel like a lot of media jobs when you interview, like jeans are now acceptable with a cute blazer.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I remember, I mean, I like to wear a suit to an interview because I like to look like a, fashion killer. But I'm not, I always have like it's my accessories are on point. Like the suit is like it's a statement. It's never dull, you know.
Right,
It's
and it's
like
part of you. It's part of your
yeah,
personality. It's part
you
of
have
your
to be
expression.
you have to be a part if you're in a creative industry. Like I feel like your wardrobe has to be creative. I think the only places where it's still like mandatory to wear just a
Wall Street,
regular suit is like financial, yeah, Wall
Wall
Street,
Street,
financial,
Wall
all that
Street.
stuff.
Hmm.
Thank God I'm not in
I
that
know.
I mean, I'd probably be like a millionaire by now if I was, so there's that.
I mean, I
But
can't do it. I mean, it's not my persona. It's not my persona. I don't stab people in the back, so I cannot
really,
be
that's where we're going with this.
to be in finance. I'm just kidding. No
Okay,
shade, no shade.
let's talk about your future.
Yes, yes.
What are your goals artistically within academia and within media in general?
Hmm. Definitely. I definitely now see myself, with the two industries where I'm like advancing a lot in positions of power. Like right now in advertising and media, being a client servicing specialist, but and also like being, a teacher and an educator. From the media, I really want at one point where they come and they bridge together, um, or they just stay on two separate lanes and the narrative is on both of them. It definitely in media, I definitely see my one of the goals I will say is I want to travel to Haiti and document Haiti from my eye and document like the diaspora in Haiti and like how, you know, Lebanese and Palestinians have integrated there, but also I want to like, document Haitians in their different forms and colors and shapes and accents and in different parts of Haiti just to like show the diversity of Haiti and show like how Haiti is just rich with its people because even though like right now statistically it's considered like one of the poorest countries. I hate to say it, but like this is how it's being placed. It is one of the richest countries from its people. It's their people are so rich that we just need to go and see and like show that to bring the narrative back here.
Yeah.
Just think the same way as Sage is doing, like he's doing it from his length. I want to do it from my length for sure. Like I want to bring Haiti to the States. Like I want to bring the people here and show that like how much this is important. Hopefully in one day, like, to lead to like investments and like get to organizations to, like invest in Haiti, like in organizations in Haiti and all of that. Because I feel like I cannot like leave this earth without contributing or at least
For the narrative.
the narrative, absolutely. And I think it's very important because I believe that like Haitians are, very resilient, because I connect them a lot to like, Palestinians and Lebanese, and me going to Haiti is not simply because of like my small percentage of like, being Haitian, which is powerful. It's also to do with me being Lebanese. Like it's part of the reason why I want to go there. I'm going there from my perspective. I grew up in a family where my father tells me this. He tells me like what matters is not where you came from necessarily. It's about what you identify as in today and your association today, the people you associate with. And he's funny. He tells me like, what, if you want to identify as Asian, as Indian, like listen, or whatever, do whatever you gotta do. Like it doesn't. But like you're my son. I love you. How you make me proud is the people around you, how they love you, how they treat you, is how they associate yourself. So your identity is the cultures that you identify with today, and that is very true because like as a Lebanese growing up in Lebanon, like I feel like as Lebanese people we're very open. Like there's Lebanese everywhere around the world and they integrate with every country they go to. Like if you go to Cameroon and a Lebanese person go there, they identify as Cameroonian. I'm like, I'm not Lebanese, I'm Cameroonian. And they speak the accent, speak the language, everything, all of that, born and raised there. Like so we have, I think, a natural tendency of integrating with other cultures. So definitely, not to go off topic, definitely, you know, get a narrative of Haiti the way that I see it. Hopefully one day, establish a program for BIPOC students the way that I'm doing right now with 100 from Concrete, but I want to take it more in academia. So maybe one day I'll become a chairperson or like dean of faculty. I think I definitely see that. It's definitely one of my goals. Maybe switching from advertising completely, but so there's like three goals on the way, but one day they will intersect. Maybe
I mean, I like the vision. I
the
love the
vision. So it's not a stable vision, but it's definitely there.
no,
Like
no,
I've
no.
oh,
Listen, vision is the vision. You continue to develop it as you go. You don't
mhm,
not work towards it because it's not fully fleshed out. Like bump
absolutely.
that. Like you got
Mhm,
this. Um,
absolutely.
I will say just like on the film, it sounds it's actually a really great idea, especially if you're painting it the way that I'm hearing it, which is like um the history behind the plight of the Haitian people to Lebanon and well, let's just say the Middle East. Um I I honestly think that if you're going to properly document that and
Hmm.
really showcase your eye, you should definitely have a team. Um, and
Yes.
when recruiting your team, you definitely should tap into your network, which doesn't
Hmm.
include Sage, but it also includes like
You,
Stephen Pebble.
you,
I mean, yeah,
you,
I'm down for a trip.
of
You want
course.
to pay me to do what I love?
To
You
go to
want to
Haiti,
fly me out to
you will
places
be
I've
on.
never been? By all
You will
means.
be dancing to compa. You will be like loving it. You will be living your best life.
Hello. You already know.
Mhm.
But no, 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 yeah, definitely make sure to build up your team for that. And if
Mhm.
there's any way that I can help out with that, let me know.
Definitely.
I love the
You
idea.
will be in the conversation. You know that. You and
Okay,
Sage and
so
Steven.
so so you consider yourself person of color or do you consider yourself black?
Well, I mean that question, like, I mean, people.
Or both?
I definitely will say some before I answer this question, just to let you know. These are terms, that are American born, that are American associated. They would have
Yeah.
never existed if like America didn't place all these things. I come from a country where we don't like the title of like, being black, white, purple, brown, all that, like it's not there. So me coming here, like I went with person of color because like this is how I should identify because like technically like I would fall under that category. And now coming with the movement, everything, I'm part of them. So I'm naturally would say that yes, I'm a person of color, but I do will definitely say this for sure. I do not identify as black simply because I have not lived the black experience. And I think it's an interesting conversation because many people asked me that before. I tell them I grew up in Lebanon, and yes, in the Middle East, if you go to Egypt, if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to Qatar, there are Africans who are Middle Easterns. In the Middle East, there are black people, there are white people, ethnically, and there are people who are like look more Mediterranean, Italian, Spaniard. It's a diversity of looks and skin colors. In Lebanon, people look very different as well. Not much Afrocentric. So for me, I grew up as Lebanese, and I came here and I embraced my Palestinian and Haitian culture. So I identify as Haitian Lebanese most of the time. That's what I say. So when someone
That is
tells me,
like, listen, I identify with my culture. Race is nothing to me.
I mean, and I do not believe on like, appropriating a culture that is not mine. Like I've
No,
had a person reach out.
I asked this question because even within like even within it's always the terms. First of all, I feel like the understanding of the terminal, like those terms like
Mm,
race versus culture versus ethnicity,
mm,
each of them means something different. And I feel like people don't exactly know the differences between those
not really.
overarching topics. And then when we go into like describing nationalities,
Yes,
cultures
an
versus
experience
color,
and the experience
and
that you
again,
grew up.
like people like I feel like these are words that have been layered on as a
Mm,
result. Sorry guys to go there again. As a
yeah.
result of
No, I
slavery.
agree with you. I agree with you. We are on the same page.
And then it's kind of been embedded into like our lifestyle, especially here in the West,
Hmm.
has been embedded into our lifestyle. It's been embedded into our cultures. And
Hmm.
then because we haven't been taught our history extensively,
Exactly.
wholeheartedly, and honestly, I feel like there's so many misunderstandings of like
Endings
words.
and
So there's
misconceptions.
and misconceptions. So there's so much debate on something as simple as, do you identify as black?
I know, I know, I know. Coming all of that to that question,
No, no. So
and
that's why I asked that question,
of
because I
course,
understand that everybody has a different perspective. So I just wanted
definitely.
to hear yours, and you said it
Mhm.
so eloquently. And
Exactly.
I
Eloquently,
think that
I'm a person of color, not black because like it's not my experience. It's not my experience to share. I cannot say I'm a black man in America
yeah,
because for one simple reason, if I'm driving a car and like an officer pulls me, they chances are they're not gonna think that I'm black. They're not gonna see me as black. They're not gonna say that I'm black, and I'm not gonna prove myself of being black to them or anything. Like I don't know what they'll think, but they will not see me as black, and I will never know what it feels to be a black man in America because I am not a black man in America. So I cannot identify with that experience because it's not who I am. But that does not neglect the fact of my African, influence from Haiti and from the Middle East.
and,
Absolutely not.
and the
Like,
fact that you used to live on the continent.
exactly, and on the continent, intersection of the continent between Asia and Africa, exactly. But as many other people, know who I am, and you know my identity. And for the people who meet me at first hand,
You're the
I
Puerto
don't
Rican poppy.
Puerto Rican papi. At the end of the day, what people say, and which I think is funny, This is something my friend Sarah said. She's like, I don't trust the white people. I only trust black people and Jad. That's it. I trust black people and Jad. That's it. And
Sorry,
another friend told me like,
laugh. That was hilarious to me.
they tell me it's gonna be an all black inclusive party and you, of course, because well, it's you, it's Jad, it's whatever. Come on, bring in. So I'm one of the people who's like invited to the cookout, but like naturally, not even debated that he's invited to the cookout. Like, he'll get along, he'll be fine. So if I think that that maybe makes me closer to the black experience, I guess,
All
which
right.
is mhm.
Sorry. Um,
That's fine.
I have time only for one question,
Yes.
and one question only.
Mm.
And I would like you to kind of sum up why you feel your voice is so important, especially today.
After all these, I mean, all the what we spoke about right now are major reasons why I feel like it is, but also because I feel my indifference to the general opinion of the world is very apparent. Like I really go against the current because I naturally do. I just do not like to hop on a bandwagon of thoughts, of general thoughts in this world, and just go with it. I feel like I have a very different approach to the world and to the universe and like how I navigate things, being someone who's from mixed backgrounds, but also someone coming from an immigrant background, living around people from different cultures and everything. I think my passion for cultural unity, I found it to be very rare coming to America. I was just slightly like disappointed, but like at the same time, like what, like it's where the world is. It's a world of divide, and it's divided because this country is based on divide. It was born on divide, and it's so hard to unite. And for me, like also I come from a country of divide as well, between Muslims and Christians in Lebanon, between Christians and Christians in Lebanon, between Syrians and Lebanese, and Syrians and Palestinians, Palestinians and Lebanese. But I think because I understood that divide existed, I just couldn't deal with it. So I just laid back on unity, and I laid back to believe that like the intersection of people together exists. It's there, and my parents taught me that, and I realized like this is what I want to take forward. And when I came here and did Once Upon a Color, and now with my career, and now talking to you, I realized that like, no, my story has to be heard, and it's not my story; it's everybody's story coming in together. So the same way that I did with Once Upon a Color, I want to do more. I want to bridge the gap and bring them together and make people understand that like you have that one thing in you as a white person that will be in common with a Nigerian coming from Nigeria, or like an Asian, or a Middle Eastern. Like we all have these common things that we need to build up upon, and that's how you break a divide. And I feel like that's very important because that builds on our narrative. So I definitely think my voice has to go there, and platforms like these allow me, the opportunity to voice them out. So I'm very hopeful of like what the world has in store for me, in the coming future. And I believe of like just being present and like saying what's on my mind. And you know me, I'm unfiltered many, 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 many times. So, and it
And
has
we
brought me
love you
here.
for it. And we love
Thank
you
you.
for it.
Thank you.
Well, honestly, Jad, I'm so excited that I was able to have you on the show today. Like,
Thank you.
I knew the conversation was going to be
Of
bomb
course,
because
of
you're
course.
bomb. But I really want to thank you for being on the show. Um you have a truly unique mindset, mind state, and I do believe that your voice is important. I love your vision of unity. I love how your path speaks to your vision of unity, even though I don't know that you necessarily see that you're literally pushing forward with your mission. You really are, both in a corporate sphere and in the academia sphere. And I'm really excited to see how 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, your presence in the spaces that you take up, um, just the impact as the result of it. I just like, you're kind of an amazing person. And I'm glad that I'm honored that I know you.
I am honored that I know you, and I am so grateful for our collaborations, and it just brings me joy. Like talking to you is just like a breath of fresh air, and like you make me dive back into my creativity. So I am very grateful for you, Lynette, and for putting this in. And you rock. You are a rock star in what you do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight, anyone who's tuning in the future, or if you like tuned in via BronxNet and then shot over to YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you. I hope you're having a blessed week. If you're not having a great week, guess what? It's only Wednesday. It can get better, okay? Thank you for tuning into the Elouise Show. I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, week, day, year.